In this video, I will be using the gateway process document to orient ourselves in the context of samsara and how this relates to the Greek language aion, uranos, and eidos. So this image that you see on the left is from the gateway document. You can see the title of it right here. It's written by a Lieutenant Colonel McDonnell. And here is his breakdown of simplified version of quantum mechanics for us, or the quantum entanglement. So this is infinity, pure consciousness. This area here, this clicked out area past Planck's constant, or Planck's distance, is intermediate dimensions. Heaven is a word for this, where near-death experiencers go, is to this domain. And then down here you see time and space. This is Earth right here. So this is the aion. This is uranos. This is eidos. Eidos, uranos, and here is the aion. So that's how we'll be breaking it down in case you want to keep listening. So this woman gave us some great information. So her name is Elizabeth Crone. You can see she had a near-death experience. She was 28 years of age, and she was struck by lightning outside of her synagogue in Houston, Texas. After leaving her body, you can see, following a light that took her to a garden she can only describe as heaven. That's the best language. Now, she didn't go to her synagogue because she was a believer. It was more social for her. She was a skeptic, really an atheist, didn't believe really anything. So it was more social for her. She was bringing her kids to the synagogue for some type of gathering, and then she was struck by lightning in the parking lot. And this is in yellow, the nutshell. She was taught quantum physics, I'll read it in a couple of seconds, and was told by the fellow true self that guided her, that she called God, that you can stay here, but you'll have to go back and start over to finish your plan. Yeah, so let's look at this transcript. There was an extensive conversation about quantum physics, and I totally understood it there when I was out of my suppressive turd machine, but here I don't know anything about quantum physics. I can't wrap my head around it here. Being here in the time-space continuum, in the aion, is like being in a bowl of pea soup. It's so murky and heavy and difficult. That's life here, which is why think about Buddhism, the first of the noble truths. Life is suffering, right? Dealing with suffering is heavy and difficult and murky. So this is only about a 30-minute video, so it's really worth listening to. She is very good. She is an attorney. She's very intelligent, very objective, no BS. She's really wonderful. So she's told, you can stay if you want. And she was like, why would I want to go back? And then the guide said, there was more that you had planned to do in this life. There was more that you had planned to do in this life. So that's why you can go back if you want to handle that. Here's what would have happened. You'll have a third child. It'll be a girl. She was also, this is 1988, it was like, let's call it March. She was told, I think it was 88 when George Bush Sr. won the presidency. She was told that George Bush is going to win the presidency this November. That's what they told her. So this is what her guide, who she called God, said. You'll have a girl. She has already picked you and your husband to be her parents. You know, people say, well, you can't pick your family. Well, apparently we do, and it's because of dealing with our own quantum entanglements. So she was told, you can either go back now and finish your plan that you signed up for. You're 28 years into it, or you can stay here and start over again. How's that? How do you feel about that one? Well, that's what many of them are told. This is a very, very common scenario that they are told. Or you can go back, you can start over, stay here, or go back to finish your plan. Okay. So that's kind of the situation that we are in. So let's look at this. How should we view this? We should be like Socrates and understand that we're dumb as shit here. Why? Because it's murky, heavy, and difficult. That's life here on purpose. when she was put back in her body, she was told that I'm going to have to squeeze you to put you back in your body, and it's going to hurt. So she was squeezed back in. Lots of the NDEers say, I expanded like a balloon and I was huge. How did I fit in that little body? Yeah, you're pure consciousness, trapped in a turd machine, thinking that you're the turd machine and not pure consciousness, is the message that NDEers experience, which is consistent with what is in the Upanishads. So, samsara and karma. So what is samsara? Samsara is endlessly, let me go back here. Samsara is not knowing that you're in pea soup, living multiple life cycles over and over again, working through your karma. That, your energy that you created, right? So over and over again without knowing that you're not your turd machine. Samsara is living out a life never thinking that you're anything other than a turd machine, a human body-mind complex. You go back to Uranus, or wherever we go, and then we recycle back in. That life cycle is samsara. So if you never heard this before, okay, well now you're aware of samsara. NDEers and intense yogic meditation lets you understand who you actually are, and theoretically you're freed from samsara. Is that true? I don't know. Many NDEers say that though, so we're going to go through this. So I'm going to show you what's available for you to read and consider. So if you put karma and samsara as models of quantum entanglement into Google, you get this AI response. I'm not going to read these. You can look at them. You can pause for yourselves. These are the key texts of Vedanta, the Bhagavad Gita, which is the teachings in the Upanishads condensed into a story. So the core idea of this comparison is that both describe a local profound interconnectedness in a cycle of cause and effect that transcends conventional notions of linear time and separate entities. Einstein called it, the entanglement, the spooky distance. Anyway, so you can read this as well. So karma and samsara, they are you can see parallels between the Vedantic ideas. I don't like the word spiritual. The Vedantic ideas. The Vedantic ideas and scientific concepts. Really, the Upanishads could really be called the ancient science of consciousness. That's really what it should be referred to as. So there's a term called Maya as well. Maya and the quantum entanglement. You can read about Maya as well. It's typically called the illusion, but the illusion really is that objects like cars have any meaning for us. That's Maya. We give ourselves into the emotion of getting a new car or a new house or whatever the hell it is. And that is Maya. We give this thing that should have no meaning, we give it meaning. That's a simple way that we create Maya for ourselves. Okay, but these are useful terms from 4,000 years ago, at least according to the timeline. Karma, Maya, samsara all relate to what we know about quantum physics and the quantum entanglement. So this is the image of samsara, the Buddhist rendition of it. You can go online, put in samsara, and this will show up. The Hindus have a version of this as well. I don't know if the Vedantins did. But what we're going to do is we're going to apply what is in the gateway document to this. So let me show you how we're going to do it. We're going to break it down, and there you go. Look what I did. I took absolute and infinity. It's out here. We have intermediate zones where this document was of interest because they're interested in doing remote viewing. So they are very well aware that we, the pure consciousness that animates the physical body, can leave it and enter intermediate zones. This was 1983. This document was published. So this is the intermediate zone. And then here is the time-space scenario that we are in. Okay, so let's break it down. And here we go. You can see the absolute and infinity, pure consciousness. This clicked out portion surrounds the time-space continuum. What we do, we cycle in and out of bodies through this scenario here because we are in what? We are in a containment field. If you look at the gateway document, a torus field, an electromagnetic containment field is what we're living in according to quantum mechanics, which matches up perfectly with the ancient Buddhist and Vedantic ideas of how consciousness operates. So this is a much more simple way of looking at it, right? So, and I've showed this image before. So let's just pretend there's darkness here. There's pea soup. We're in darkness here. So this is the time-space carbon-based ion that we are in. I'll show you why we use the word ion in a couple of seconds. Because ion means a limited period of time, an age. That's the language. It's used in the Bible, misunderstood by Christians. So this would be uranos, the immediate clicked-out non-carbon-based dimension. There it is. And this is beyond this dimension is the absolute in infinity, which Schrodinger's, why he said Atman equals Brahman. This is his book, Schrodinger, What is Life? He was inspired by Arthur Schopenhauer to read the Upanishads. And it was Watson of Watson and Crick who was inspired by Schrodinger to discover DNA. That is the power of the Upanishads. From Schrodinger, rather from Schopenhauer to Schrodinger to Watson and Crick, and now we've got the genome because of the thinking that exists in the Upanishads that is consistent with quantum mechanics. Pretty amazing, quantum physics. So this is a much less complicated version than this, but the same idea, right? So we've got the ion here. We've got uranos, with a clicked out portion here. We've got the absolute Brahman here. And there we have it, the absolute in infinity. We've got the clicked out intermediate zone, and we have the time-space continuum that we are currently in. So this is a pretty easy way to look at it. Now here's how I think we should look at it. Stage set Earth, the containment field, the torus that we are in, the containment field. We'll call it the third dimension because there's no turding going on here. Turds are only taking place here. Where do we live? We live in suppressed, right? Pea soup, like Elizabeth Crone said. It's like we live in murky and darkness, pea soup and confusing. Yes, we are suppressed in our human turd machines. It's a domain of fear, ignorance, darkness, death, confusion, suffering, and hedonism. So we should look at it as being a rock tumbler for the true self. And our earthly incarnations allow us, the true self, to become polished and refined and eventually free to leave the third dimension and hopefully get into the absolute. That's the idea. That's the idea. That is what is described in the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, as well as the Upanishads. And Schrodinger said Atman is Brahman. Brahman is another word for the absolute in infinity. The true self or soul, as humans call it, is Atman. Called daemon, actually, in the ancient Greek, which is a real problem for Christians. Okay, so this is what we are told in the Gateway document. The critical step out of time-space. Here we are, time-space. To step out of time-space, you have to have a near-death experience, or you die, or you do the gateway process, the hemi-syncing that they taught participants. Meditation, Buddhist meditation can do this. Even some ayahuasca aspects kind of similar. But really, the ayahuasca is not the best way. You want to have your mind not seeing psychedelic shit. Okay, so what are we told here? The critical step out of time-space occurs when the speed of oscillation drops below 10 to the negative third centimeters per second, Planck's distance. To use the words of Bentov, quantum mechanics tells us that when distances go below Planck's distance, we enter, in effect, a new world. We enter a new world. That's exactly right. NDEers enter the new world. That's where they go. And holy shit, I'm not my body. And that's when they have their experiences and come back and they change their lives completely. Completely, many do. So this is what NDEers learn. They learn about the third dimension when they're out. And this is the goal of the hemi-syncing via the gateway process. And it's the purpose of yoga is ultimately to know your true self. It's not to like do hot yoga and get in shape, although that's not a bad thing either. So here's the best way I think for us to look at this is. I'm going to give you the spinning wheel of samsara from the Buddhists in a couple of seconds. But here's what I think. This is what true selves learn during their near-death experience. They learn to behave as described in these books. And the information that they learned about quantum mechanics, for example, the way Elizabeth Crone, well, that would have been in these books. So these books this attitude of I don't know anything, the yoke of Jesus, which is consistent with these books here as well. So these books should be viewed as, in my view, as how to help us better understand the clicked out dimension that we cannot identify with our senses. This is a human sense free domain. This is pure consciousness. And these three books here are about pure consciousness. This book here is the simple way, what Jesus said in the Bible, the Jesus character said in the Bible, this way of behaving is the simplest way to return our minds to how they were when we were children, when we very much more acted like true selves versus hedonistic adults. Think about Catcher in the Rye. We want to keep ourselves in the rye so we don't fall off the cliff into Emperor's New Clothes adulthood and completely forget who we are. That is why I think these books are all very valuable. They show us, they give us information to guide us to understanding who we really are. And the Bible is actually one of the best in terms of breaking it down, because for some of you listening right now, this would be an apocalypse, which simply means an unveiling. What am I unveiling? Information in books that I learned. That's really what I'm unveiling, and stuff else I learned. So we all get unveilings all the time. So the Bible is a very interesting book in that context. The thing to do is to step back from all these books and forget about names and forms. Look at the Gita, forget about Krishna and Arjuna. Look at the Bible, forget about Jesus and Moses and all those guys. Forget name and form and think message. Because these messages are transmitted to us in more simple fashions by true selves on earth in bodies when they create their imagination stories. Like all of these stories here that we've all are aware of can be likened to stories about these books. What did the blue fairy tell Pinocchio? If you want to be a real boy, you must be what? You must be brave, truthful, unselfish, and choose right from wrong and let your conscience be your guide. Well, you are the conscience. This is the conscience. The turd machine is not the conscience. The turd machine is your own personal Satanas, right? Your own personal adversary. Here he is, your own personal adversary. The false self limbic system called apasmara in Sanskrit is the mind-body complex that is our personal Satanas that we must overcome, our adversary, right? So what did Pinocchio do? He had to overcome his little adversary. He got duped by the coachman and Sly Fox and what's the other guy's name? The coachman and Stromboli, right? Drinking beers with Lampwick. And then he got a hold of himself, saved Geppetto, and was born again, baby, born again. So look at The Truman Show, released from his world of darkness. What happened in Captain Hook? Well, Peter Pan forgot who he was and had to become Peter Pan again. And of course, the force is obvious. And what about Dune? Think about the Gom Jabbar scene in Dune, and of course The Matrix. How about Free Guy? All those stories are consistent with these books here to varying degrees. We can use these books to think about how we can escape the third dimension and get into Uranus and beyond, assuming that such a thing happens, which I cannot say for sure. Although many NDEers say, I saw many true souls that are freed from having to come back and live out life cycles. That means that many other souls before us have polished themselves enough, right? Here are the rocks that we are now. We polished ourselves enough and escaped to Uranus and the Absolute. This seems to be the way to look at it. Okay, another way to look at it. I've shown you this picture before. So here is Brahman, right? So this is the Absolute. This is pure consciousness. Let's do this. We're going to add to this picture what we learn in the Gateway document. So here we are. The Absolute in infinity is Brahman. The intermediate dimension, the heavenly domains, they're called lokas, Chandra Loka, Brahma Loka in Sanskrit, and then time space, the third dimension. So you can see what happens. So this is this we're spinning our wheels, literally spinning our wheels in samsara. So this is what we do to ourselves. The red, these are all the temptations and false beliefs that we fall prey to. We believe all this bullshit. And we forget who we are. We separate ourselves. We can go through lifetimes, and ignore all of our milestones and never polish ourselves enough to be reunited with the Absolute. So the goal of our lifetimes, according to this model, is to become, again, like pure Peter Pan. Pull ourselves back. Look at this right here. Look at what happens here. We pull ourselves back from all the materialism and the false beliefs, and we purify ourselves and get back to the way we were as kids. And now we can be released back to Brahma. No more samsara for you. What was that? No soup for you. No more samsara for you. So another way to look at it with the same image. This is showing how we get released. So again, we have this image lines up. Brahman, the intermediate dimension, heavenly dimensions, they say. Various worlds, as we're told in the Gateway document, and here in time-space, the third dimension of name, form, and relativity. Time versus because in this intermediate dimension, there is time goes bye-bye compared to what it's like here. And here there's zero time. It's just pure awareness. So the goal, of course, is to do what? Again, purify ourselves. Purify or refine, I don't know the best word for it, but we can certainly see one circle to many circles and then back to Big Daddy. So this is what we're supposed to do again, right? We're supposed to follow the yoke. Now, sattva, you can see, and ahimsa. Ahimsa means never hurt, do harm to any other living being. Pure non-aggression. To be pure non-aggression, you must be sattvic. What is sattvic? 1 through 4 reflect what sattva means. You can look these words up yourself. And then you get released back to Brahman. Okay, so now we're going to use this image. Way more complicated. So this is the third or fourth way I'm doing this, I guess, right? The third way I'm explaining this. So here's kind of what I created a long time ago, several months ago, maybe a year ago, just kind of working on and thinking about it. Trying to blend what I've learned to show how people's ideas are really good. Like, for example, this is Jason of Archaics. He thinks that we're in a 7,000-year ion. That would be the language, 7,000 years before a reboot, is what he thinks. Is he right? I don't know. But the point, though, is that this is a definite period of time, and that's what ion means. Ion does not mean eternal life. It means a limited time period. That is what ion means. So we are in the ion now. When our current turd machines die, we go to Uranus. And then we come back in. We cycle. So notice what I put here. The voice, the vox of escape. This is the mindset of escape. I know nothing. Now, obviously, by doing all this, I know something, but I don't know. I only know what I know, right? So this is what the best way for Socrates, that look is, look forward this way and figure out what you don't know. Because over here, what you do know, who cares? We want to build on it. So we have this voice of, I don't know, and we're going to engage the yoke of Jesus, and if you choose, and it's consistent with the Gita. So here are the voices that we have of escape, as I showed you previously in that more three-tiered version of things. So here's what it looks like. You can see now how I place this in. So we've got the ion, we've got Uranus, we've got Eidos, and here you can see ion, Uranus, Eidos. So Brahman, absolute, and you have your 7 lokas is what we have in Vedanta or Hinduism, and the lokas include the ion and Uranus. So we have the ion, Uranus, and Eidos from the ancient Greeks, which is in the Bible. So that's kind of how we're blending all this. We can blend Vedanta, ancient Greek, Bible, quantum physics, with a Buddhist rendition of Samsara that resembles the Hindu rendition. And here we are in the ion, the domain of Maya and Samsara. It is the time-space continuum that we are in. When you're out in Uranus, between births, it's timeless. And you only need to be there for a couple of seconds. My near-death experience was short-lived, but for 2 seconds, it was completely, not 4 seconds, really 2 seconds of timelessness. When you experience 2 seconds of timelessness, it feels like it's way more than 2 seconds. And when you come back in, there's a time delay. Most NDEers, or many of them, will tell you that they've got time issues because of being aware of the timeless state. There's a blend that takes place. But we are in a domain of Maya and Samsara. This is the language of Vedanta, time and space. So here is Ion and Gaia. Gaia is Mother Earth. Ion, you can see, he stands in a zodiac. It is purely about earthly time. Time and space is the Ion and Gaia. Okay. So here's what you can see from Perseus, Greek word study tool, where I take the word ion and put it into the Greek word study tool. What do we see? One's lifetime, this present world, an era, an epoch, an age, like Jason of Archaics thinks it's 7,000 years. I don't know, right? Socrates, how the hell do I know? I don't know. I just know that we are in the ion based upon what these words mean. Gaia is clearly Mother Earth. And we think this is what it is. Like we think that there's this afterlife. This is like that emphasizes Earth life as the important place. It's ridiculous. It's the horrible view to take place. This is temporary. This is like a dojo for the true self. So this is what we're told in the Gateway document. There are intervening dimensions. Since the absolute is conscious energy in infinity, without boundaries, it occupies every dimension to include intermediate and the time-space dimension in which we have our physical existence, but we cannot perceive it. We cannot perceive what? We cannot perceive conscious energy because our human nervous systems lack interoceptors and exteroceptors to sense pure consciousness. That is the challenge. That is the nature of the dojo that we are in the ion. Now, this language came out in 1983 in the Gateway document produced by the Army that was released by the CIA in 2003. Now, this language right here is identical to the language in the Gospel of Thomas. You want to see? Where is my Gospel of Thomas? Here we go. The kingdom of the Father, Brahman, or the Absolute, is spread out upon the earth, and men do not see it. So you see, we've got, on the left side, we've got the Gateway document that is consistent language with the Upanishads and the Gita. And of course, over here on the right side, we've got the Yoke of Jesus, and we've got the Bible, both very valuable at understanding the nature of our situation. They describe it nicely. They're very, very complementary information. So let's look more at kind of how this would flow through us getting out of the ion and ouronos and into idios, or the absolute. So remember, this was the other image that I gave you before for orientation. And this is what I showed before I gave you that other kind of scenario. I'm not going to stop and start this video because I don't have that function. So here's how it looks though. So the goal is to get into idios. So we are currently in the ion, living in darkness. We are supposed to be true selves. Now the mind here is the mind-body complex. All of our desires, goals, all the earthly things, the attachments that we have. We are supposed to be like Shiva and be true selves. And if we get through, and if we work through the ion as the true self, we can be released. Note up here, the sphincter of moksha. Moksha means to be released from samsara. So I call it the sphincter of moksha. And we get to the sphincter if we embrace Matthew 18:3, according to the Bible, because that is what? You will never enter the kingdom, right? The real kingdom, unless you become guileless like a child, which means you become the pure self again. So this attitude here is the attitude of the pure self. If I don't know it, I don't know shit, is the way Socrates did it. Okay, so let's look at what happens. So this is us. Imagine that the red line that you see going around the true self and the dangling modifiers, that's the body, the red. I, the true self, am in the red body, living in the ion. What are these things? These are my dangling modifiers, my karmic dojo lessons that I must relive. Remember what Elizabeth was told. You can stay here now, but you got to go back. To go back to do what? To handle the plan, part of which is getting rid of your dangling modifiers. So if you do it wrong and you get attached to weird earthly stuff, look what happens. And act like you're the mind, look what happens. We add more dangling modifiers. So this was a lifetime I lived. We all did this most likely. We lived as the mind body as opposed to the true self. So we added karma to us. Boom, more karma. So we commit ourselves to being the true self and not the mind. Overcome the mind, which is the purpose of yoga. The purpose of yoga is to overcome the mind. So this is how we do it. Look what happens. We become the true self again in a lifetime, whether we know it or not, right? Just follow these. If you live like this, we burn off karma, whether we stay in samsara or not. Boom, a lifetime of the true self. Knocking off karmic irregularities, fixing our entanglement in the quantum entanglement that we are in. Ooh, detangle. Another lifetime, we're going to detangle, detangling. Finally, now we're detangled. Now what happens? Now we leave the ion, get too close to the sphincter of moksha, line ourselves up. We're going to exit the pupa. Look what happens. The sphincter loads. The sphincter loads. And we're going to exit the poop hole of your anus. Isn't that hilarious? Uranus, Uranus, your anus. We are in turd machines, living in turd machines in a, right, death and horrible place at times. So we're going to exit the poop hole for adios. Here we are. We do our karma right. We get over it. We free ourselves. We enter Uranus for one last time. The sphincter loads, and we are set free. And that is what the story of Vedanta actually is. And it lines up with what Jesus said as well in the Bible, right? And as well as the Gospel of Thomas. And it lines up as well with quantum physics. I'll do more videos on all of this, but this is kind of how I wanted to intro this because a lot of people made some comments hoping for more information about the gateway. Now, I think this is the last image of this video. Let me see if it is or not. Oh, all right. Yeah, there we go. So this is where we started, and this is where we end, right? So we are in the ion. Whether Jason is right or not, don't know. But we are definitely in the ion. And you saw what Elizabeth Crone says. You can. So she was told, you can stay here or go back in and finish your plan. And so back in she went. Because the goal, once again, is to load that sphincter of moksha and be freed. Anyway, so I'm going to end it here. This video, I'll do more on this topic as time goes on.